From Qingyun Sect to Huang City, the most outstanding for disciples of Qingyun Sect flew on their swords. Others were at ease, but Zhang Xiaofan couldn't help but struggle a bit. He had been recuperating for a month, and it seemed that Suru had expected that he would be fine. She taught him some Qingyun Sect Taoist secrets and also taught him how to use artifacts to fly through the air. In fact, it's simple as long as your cultivation is deep enough and the artifact is not too inferior. You can drive the artifact with Qingyun Taoist techniques supplemented by mental power. However, Zhang Xiaofan's cultivation was not deep, and although the artifact was not bad, it was quite strange, and he was quite unfamiliar with the newly learned Qingyun Sect Taoist techniques, so it was troublesome to use them initially. Suru didn't expect him to descend the mountain immediately upon arriving at Tianyin Peak. She planned to let him memorize the formulas first and let him practice more after returning to Zhu Peak. The heads of the various peaks naturally didn't know the details of this strange kid. Seeing his outstanding performance in the 7 Peaks competition, they naturally assumed that he knew the most basic sword control techniques, but they didn't know that Zhang Xiaofan had secretly learned Taoist techniques and practiced to the level of manipulating objects. But he knew nothing about sword control techniques. Seeing the others summoning their immortal swords, Qihao had a white cold ice sword, Lu Zueki had a blue Chanyao sword, and Zhang Xiaoshu had a sword with a faint purple or Chuanyuan. Zhang Xiaofan was nervous. He reluctantly summoned his fiery stick, but it seemed a bit lacking in feeling compared to the 7 Peaks competition. Traveling through clouds and mountains, this journey was supposed to take half a day, but the 4 of them didn't arrive at Huang City until the sun went down. When Zhang Xiaofan and the other 3 landed in a secluded place outside Huang City, their bodies were already soaked. Their faces pale. It seemed that they were even more tired than during the competition that day. Although they had the intention to avoid suspicion by not flying into the city, they were also afraid that if they were seen in the bustling market of the city, if Zhang Xiaofan fell down from high altitude, it would not only be embarrassing for him, but also disgraceful for Qingyun Sect, which had been established for 2,000 years. They took a break and waited for Zhang Xiaofan to catch his breath before heading towards the towering Huang City in the sunset. Zhang Xiaofan walked at the end, feeling the occasional puzzled gazes from Qihao and Lu Zueki in front of him. Obviously, they couldn't understand why someone who had shown in the 7 Peaks competition couldn't even handle the basic sword control techniques. It was only Zhang Xiaoshu who walked with Zhang Xiaofan, still smiling, and didn't mention what had just happened. He chattered on, introducing Huang City to Zhang Xiaofan within a radius of 100 miles. This is the largest and most prosperous place. There are at least 200,000 to 300,000 people living in this city, and the location is excellent, with a lot of traffic from merchants and travelers, making it very lively. Listening to Zhang Xiaoshu, Zhang Xiaofan couldn't help but admire his wide knowledge and said, "Xiaoshu, how do you know so much?" Zhang Xiaoshu looked pleased with himself and said, "What's so strange about that? I've read a lot of books." He showed a sly smile and whispered to Zhang Xiaofan's ear, "Actually, I've been here many times before, all of them sneaking down the mountain." Zhang Xiaofan was shocked and said, You. Zhang Xiaoshu tilted his mouth and said, "Why do you look so scared? What's the big deal?" "Since I've been practicing swordsmanship, it's natural to practice regularly. Flying here, flying there. It's nothing extraordinary to take a break and go shopping." Zhang Xiaofan was speechless. Listening to the 2 of them chattering behind him, Chahao smiled slightly and said to the side to Lu Zueki, "Junior sister Lu, it's getting late. Let's stay here tonight and continue our journey tomorrow." Lu Zueki's face was as cold as ice, showing no expression, just nodded lightly. Entering the city, in order to avoid trouble, they had changed into the attire of Qingyun disciples early on, which didn't arouse any suspicion. But Lu Zueki's extraordinary beauty caused quite a stir, attracting many passers-by to stop and watch. Zhang Xiaofan glanced at Lu Zueki beside him, seeing that although she had no expression on her face, There was a hint of anger in her bright eyes. He couldn't help but worrying about these onlookers. If Tianyao was drawn, the ancient city, with such a long history, might be ruined halfway. However, Lu Zueqi's demeanor was obviously much better than Zhang Xiaofan had expected. Even after they settled into an enclosed Shanghai garden, Lu Zueqi remained calm. Among the group, Chahao had the deepest experience, and the four of them vaguely regarded him as their leader. Chahao took the lead in handling matters like staying in an inn. Afterwards, they were arranged to stay in the best rear garden. This Shanghai garden was quite large in scale, with four separate courtyards in the rear garden. The four of them stayed in the west courtyard, each in their own room. After resting for a while, Chahao called everyone to the front restaurant for dinner. Shanghai garden had its own restaurant, located on the busy street in Heyang City. However, the VIP hall on the third floor was very quiet. There were only less than 10 tables in the spacious hall, and currently about 5 tables had guests dining. Chahao called the waiter over and ordered a few dishes. Seeming very familiar with this place, most likely a regular customer, as Zhang Xiaofan thought to himself. Being from a peasant family, he had never been to such a luxurious place as Shanghai Garden. Passing by the second floor earlier, he saw the magnificent hall, but upon reaching the third floor, he saw carved dragons and painted phoenixes, redwood beams, and an antique atmosphere completely different from the second floor. He naturally didn't know that when people reached a certain level of wealth and status, they tended to pursue refinement. Although some people enjoyed luxury, many also pursued sophistication to be seen as cultured. The four of them sat at a small table by the window. Zhang Xiaofan glanced at the decoration in the hall and said to Chahao, "Senior brother Cha, isn't this place expensive?" Chahao smiled faintly and said, "This is the best restaurant in Heyang City, so naturally, it's not cheap. However, Qingyun has a good reputation here. The owner of this place is happy to have us here and won't charge us much." Zhang Xiaofan exclaimed